And welcome to the Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Robbie Alampay of One News.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
And we're back. It's a new season for the Chiefs. And
Na-miss niyo ba tayo?
Oo, nagbago ang ating lugar, nagbago rin ating lamesa at higit sa lahat, nagbago ang ating format.
Oo nga. Kasi branding nga. Hindi ba?
Hindi lang rebranding, rethinking of the program.
Yan na nga.
I think I like this format. At least the way we've been discussing it, not just with us and with the producers. Diba? Parang the whole idea here is we have more time to really converse, and also really have some takeaways from the conversations. Also, it's less, the way I understand it, the way I appreciate it, less direction for us to try to keep pace with the day-to-day
So we can
news
dig in
breaks.
deeper in
So we can
issues.
really focus on some issues that really need some longer conversations.
Yes, sabi nga nung more time to discuss what we talked about. Di ba? To keep the conversation going.
And talking about digging deeper, we are going to be talking about digging deeper. Reclamation.
Ayan na nga.
Ano yun? Piling on.
If you want to pile on, you have to dig up.
Dig and pile on. Yan ang problema. Affected
But to
tayo.
that point lang, dun po sa, given the new format that we want to be more circumspect and that we have a lot more time to really consider what we want to talk about, who we want to talk about. If you're following us on social media, mag-comment din po kayo sa aming Facebook, tweet at us, follow us in the different platforms, and then feel free to suggest din ano ba dapat pinag-uusapan namin. We will appreciate your comments.
And in a bit, we are bringing in our guest for tonight. Tonight, Senator Cynthia Villar. She's the chairperson of the Committee on Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform and the Committee on Environment, Natural Resources and Climate Change. Welcome to the Chiefs, Senator Villar, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you
Magandang gabi po.
for having me tonight.
Opo.
Buena mano nga.
Well naman, welcome to our brand new set, brand new format for the
Yeah.
Chiefs.
In
I hope
person.
I'm a lucky person. I'm a lucky to you.
Yeah.
Well, ma'am, you've been consistent in your position against reclamation in Manila Bay. But I suppose the problem is a lot of people can't seem to comprehend or relate to reclamation. Kasi to begin with, medyo out of sight yan. Number two, maraming tao, wala rin namang lupa. Pero in simple terms, how do you explain to people what the issue is about pagdating sa reclamation? Bakit po kayo
For us, Las Piñas, Parañaque, and Bacoor, because we have 4 rivers going out of Manila Bay. The Parañaque River, the Las Piñas River, the Zapote River, which we share with Bacoor, and the Molino River of Bacoor. They all go to the same place in the Manila Bay. For us, it's just a simple question of where will our water go if they reclaim Manila Bay. Yung reclamation nasa path ng water namin. So, sinabihan na ako dyan in 2015 that if you allow reclamation, you will be flooding by 6 to 8 meters.
Las Piñas.
Las Piñas. And 6 meters is 3-story building.
That's around
Can we
18 to 20
afford
feet.
that? That's why I have been against reclamation since then. I cannot allow that we have flooding. But the people cannot understand because they will not be the one to be flooded. But if you're the one to be flooded, you can understand. I have been cleaning our Las Piñas Zapote River for the last 12 years. In fact, I built a river drive so that we will have access to the river to be able to clean the river. I built 40 kilometers of river drive, and all the people living along the river, usually ISF, I had them transferred to the NHA project in Naik, Cavite, and that takes a lot of effort. I have been doing that for the last 12 years, and after that, after spending so much time and effort doing it, they will just close the bay where our river will go.
I think that illustrates po very well yung concerns ng LGU. But as we know, it's not just Las Piñas and Parañaque and Bacoor. Manila Bay affects the whole thing. In fact, when we say suspend muna, we're actually talking about, what, tama ba? 22 reclamation.
Yes, 22 ECCs. And minimum each ECC is 300 hectares. Minimum. Merong 800, merong 500 or so. So, tama yung sinabi mo na 8,000 hectares. Di ba?
All in all.
And it's not only me. Me who is complaining. Yung South Harbor, North Harbor, saan dadaan yung mga ship papuntang South Harbor and North Harbor kung i-reclaim nila yung dadaanan. And then, of course, the U.S. Embassy is complaining. And then the Manila Yacht Club complaining. And yung lahat ng mga institution doon na their appeal is their view of Manila Bay. Now, there will be no view of Manila Bay.
Saka, Senator, yung mga fisher folk, of course.
Yeah,
sila yung
300,000 fisher folks in Manila Bay. And all the towns there, we have a fishing port. Parañaque has a fishing port. Bacoor has a fishing port. I'm sure Nabotas has a fish port. Lahat naman ng mga bayan along Manila Bay may fish port kasi may fisherman sila, di ba? In fact, one of the value of our Las Piñas Parañaque Wetland Park, which is a legislated protected area along Manila Bay, is that we are the biggest spawning ground of fishes in Manila Bay, our 35 hectares of mangrove.
The other thing, I think that why the public reacts every time mapapag-usapan reclamation is that the entire process is also, and even the policies for it, are also quite opaque to everyone. Magugulat na lang kami, and then we don't even have time to think, teka muna, sino ba yung ano dito? For example, when there's a reclamation project, sino pa proponent dyan? What typically is the
Usually, it's sasabihin nila local government na in partnership with a private institution, and then sasabihin nila paghahatian nila yung lupa na marireclaim nila.
And there are always those two players involved, local government and a private interest.
And then, huhingi sila ng ECC, environmental clearance for the DNR. And after that, I think they will get a permit from the PRA, the Philippine Reclamation Authority.
Ma'am, teka, uminit ang usapan pero let's pause muna for a break and that's still a warm-up pa lang of our discussion. We will continue this conversation with Senator Cynthia Villar right after this short break. Keep it here in the Chiefs.
Reclamation Authority admits that it is difficult to suspend some of the ongoing reclamation projects in the Manila Bay.
Financially, they have already spent so much on the studies. And secondly, foreign vessels and crews are already in. And, whenever these vessels would have their operation, they would be assessed with demurrage and other fees by the authorities.
Maraming problema, marami kaming nakita na hindi masyadong magandang patakbo. But anyway, malaking isa pang malaking problema na kailangan ayusin yun.
Welcome back to the Chiefs here on One News, and still with us, Senator Cynthia Villar. Ma'am, I was asking a while ago, before we started, reclamation is, of course, a public interest issue. It involves all of us. But some of these projects are private, some of these projects are public. Who gets to decide finally, with finality, kung papayagan o hindi ang reclamation?
I think just is what is happening. Kasi I remember they were planning this reclamation as early as 2010, and they got the ECC already, but President Aquino said there will be no reclamation in Manila Bay. Stop lahat.
That's a veto power. Pero yung approval power,
Nasa DNR and PRA.
Pero, so ang process, kasi kailangan muna ng DENR, ECC, no? And then the PRA because of the area. And then, paano siya mag-uumpisa? Sino yung mag-green light sa kanya? Kasi I remember even President Duterte, sabi niya, ayoko ng reclamation, but actually several projects were approved nung early years niya, and then later sinabi na lang niya ayoko na ng new reclamation.
Binawi from Manila, specifically, if I remember.
So ano yung process? So DENR
Talagang
muna,
DNR and PRA. Oo.
and then yung go signal, umpisahan nyo na yan. Sino na yan?
Sila rin. Kasi minsan di naman alam ng presidente. Ang sabi ko nga, the president can veto. Like for example, I went to President Aquino during that time, and then sinabi niya, I don't want any reclamation in Manila Bay. Stop. Now, stop ngayon kasi sinabi ni President Marcos, kailangan mag-announce ka na stop.
but in the end, is there anybody who is ultimately and singularly responsible
Kung sino nagbigay ng permit, yun na yun.
Yes, but for looking at the entirety of things, kasi it's one thing for an agency to approve individual projects and only look at individual effects versus looking at the entirety of
Because
Manila
in
Bay.
the first place, if you don't have ECC, you cannot proceed. So, yun ang beginning, yung ECC mo. Kasi kung doon pa lang hindi na binigyan yun, it cannot proceed.
Ako ang hindi ko maintindihan. Let's say even pumasa sa ECC. Let's say even that scientifically they could justify na okay lang ang impact matitake na. Ang hindi ko maintindihan is, all due respect to local governments, everybody's trying to improve the land that we already have. Yeah, but hindi ko maintindihan sa reclamation is, pwede ba ayusin muna natin yung mga lupang kinatatayuan natin ngayon? You talked about flooding. It's already flooding. Naka-traffic na. Magulo na yung mga ano. Pwede bang ayusin muna natin bago tayo gumawa ng bagong lupa?
It's the wish of everybody. I think we all have common sense. Ano ba yung nag-uudyok sa kanila na gawin dyan? There must be something there. So, siguro may mga personal interest din.
Well, at least meron tayong model, no, success story, to not only to prevent reclamation but to develop actually the coastal area.
Yeah.
Yung Las Piñas, Parañaque Ecotourism Park. Siguro you can tell us the process. Give us an idea kung anong nangyari. Kaya nangyari, it's a very nice park and unique.
Actually, that park was created long before in the 1990s. So, naghingi yung Italtay. That's what do you call it? A Thai company.
Yep.
Nag-ayos siya doon, di ba? Then, it was declared unconstitutional. Because a foreign company cannot do that in the Philippines. So, nagdemanda I think the former Secretary of Justice namatay na, si Chavez.
Okay.
So, the Italtay project was declared unconstitutional. Then, because it's owned by the Thai company, it was sold to another company, a Filipino company, to proceed with the work. Pero hindi natuloy. It was, ang pagkala ng company, I forgot the name of the company. So from then on, we fought that reclamation. So when in 2007, it was declared as a critical habitat and ecotourism area by President Macapagal Arroyo. So, nagkaroon na ng to protect it because it's a critical habitat. But they didn't stop because it's just an executive order. So, they proceeded. but we contradict it, and after a while, the proponent told me that they will transfer to Bulacan. They will leave na daw kami. So I was so happy. That was in 2015.
Yes.
And then they transferred to Bulacan and they left us alone. And in 2018, I declared it as a legislated protected area. Kasi from an ecotourism area, critical habitat and ecotourism area, there is reason now to declare it as a legislated protected area. And besides, in 2013, it was declared as the in the Ramsar list as one of the most important wetlands in the world.
Yeah.
We are a signatory to the Ramsar Treaty, and under that condition, the government of the Philippines should protect any wetland in the Ramsar Treaty. So,
and I have to say, ma'am, I've seen it.
Yeah.
It was my own children who encouraged us to see it. Napakaganda nung development.
When I moved that it be declared a legislated protected area, I was successful, both in houses, my daughter in the House of Representatives and myself in the
But
Senate.
if I may, ma'am, all of this, I mean, going beyond the success of this project, and for that matter, going beyond the reclamation, one common theme here is really also local government interests and mandates versus national mandates and directives. Sometimes that can really, not just sometimes, very often that can run into conflict.
Yeah,
When it
yeah.
comes to land use or everything, kaninong dapat ang manaig?
Like, for example, in the management of the legislated protected area, there is a protected area management board, and it's composed of the national government and the local government. Like, we're members of that as national official, and even DNR and Coast Guard and many others, and as well as the local government. We are all co-members of that. So there will be conflict, but you have to have the desire to protect it. That's
Opo.
the most important thing from my experience.
Opo, pero
That,
pagka may PAMBI kayo, ibig sabihin meron ng, may ground rules na and may platform na for everybody to be
yeah,
around the table.
yeah.
But I'm asking, I guess my question really does go to land use, the Land Use Act. I take note, for example, that in the last SONA, in the first SONA of President Marcos, he actually mentioned Land Use Act. Nawala pa rin tayo after so many decades. I know a lot of people who got excited about it. Next SONA, the second SONA of the President, wala nang banggit sa Land Use Act. We didn't actually hear anything over the first year. What are your thoughts on the Land Use Act?
My thoughts there is that when you do a land use plan, as an investor, I will have a hard time if there are two agencies in charge of it.
National and local, you mean?
and local. Because that means I have to go to the local and I have to go to the national. And if there's a conflict, mahirapan ako. Yung ease of doing business lang ang ano natin doon. Kasi that has been an issue for the Philippine government, that it's very hard to do business in the Philippines. That's why we're trying to simplify our process. I was thinking that if it's only the local, then isa na lang ang kakausapin mo. But siyempre nagkaka-conflict like this. They want reclamation, but it's against the national interest that there will be reclamation. If you take them together, siguro isang reclamation na maliit, okay lang. But if you take them together, like this one, 22 ECCs for Bay, 8,000 hectares, that's, you cannot conceive what will happen after that, di ba?
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Ma'am, yun na po,
minsan nagkakaroon ng conflict, but this is seldom kasi I'm so surprised that the local government are really bent on reclaiming.
That's why, Ma'am, I was asking
Yeah.
if there's anybody who is singularly in charge of looking at the entirety of the Manila Bay.
No,
Kasi
that's-
out of 199,000 hectares of Manila Bay, you're looking at reclamation of 8,000 hectares. That's 1 hectare of reclaimed area out of every
DNR
20
talaga.
hectares.
DNR talaga. DNR talaga will be in charge. In fact, there was a study but they ignored it and they issued the ECC. But it's really the DNR. I have been chairman of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources in the Senate. I'm always telling them, look, you are in charge of the taking care of the environment. Don't forget that. Let DTI take care of the business, but you take care of the environment.
Ayun nga, you mentioned the business. Kasi yun ang sinasabi ng ibang local governments. They were the ones actually that invited bids for the reclamation. Sabi nila, well, it's going to be good for business, for the local revenue.
But together,
it will create jobs now.
But together, what will it do to Metro Manila? You know, what you call Indonesia, the capital of Indonesia, Jakarta is sinking.
Yes.
It's a reality of life. That I remember I went to an island in what you call this, Indonesia, to look at there, because they're one of the biggest producer din ng coconut and cacao. So I went there to look at it. So because we have a big coconut and cacao industry also, and that island sank.
Kanina we were having a conversation that it's also, you also have to take it into consideration of how local governments and local communities
Yes.
ultimately want to determine also their own opportunities. But
But I came from
isn't-
the local government
Yes, but
also.
isn't
I'm not blinded. I mean, okay lang that you open opportunities to your town, but be sure to take care of it in the long term,
Yeah.
diba? I came from local government. My father was mayor for 22 years and congressman for 5 years. I mean, if he was the one, he will not let this happen. Sasarahan yung 4 rivers mo, what will happen to your town?
Yeah.
Even if it's progressive, but if there's flooding, my God, what will be the state of the people living in your town, di ba? And like for example, you bought a house there. I remember in the 1970s, you will buy a house in Las Piñas, you'll pay 50,000 pesos per house. Now, if you're going to buy a house in Las Piñas, you cannot buy less than 5 million, siguro 10 million. So, yun na yung tubo nung lahat ng bumili ng bahay. Tapos, ipalulubog mo. What do you think will happen to the price of houses in Las Piñas if there's flooding? I remember Senator Pimentel was saying to me that, you know, you have to be careful because I live in Marikina and my home was flooded during Ondoy. And I think the flood reached the roof of the 3rd-story building. So he told me every time there is rain, he's afraid where the flood will rise to. In fact, he's not putting any improvement in his first floor. Kasi parang automatic yung first floor. Magpa-flood. Oo. Ang assumption, second floor. Natatakot pa rin siya, baka umakyat ng second floor. Sabi ko, why don't you transfer to another place? Just sell your house. Sabi niya, nobody will buy a house in a flooded place. So, nawala na ng value yung mga real estate property ng mga and we are 600,000 people in Las Piñas, 600,000 people in Parañaque, and 600,000 people in Bacoor. And our houses will have no value. I mean, even if you're a local government and you want to improve your town, but that should be a consideration also because you take care of the welfare of your constituents.
Ma'am, anyway, we need to take a quick break again. Pasensya sa mga breaks, pero it's also to keep us on our toes. So we'll take another short break. The cheese will be right back.
Environment Chief Tony Yulo Loizaga brushed off accusations that she is afraid of the big businessmen behind Manila Bay's reclamation project.
This is Senator Villar's, I guess, statement of concern regarding this very complicated issue. And I'm very grateful for our interaction, no? But we are here to do our job. Nangyari po ito before I joined government, so I will not venture to say what happened then. Ang role ng DNR dito is to stay within our mandate. Hindi lang po ang DNR ang kasali doon. There are 13 other agencies aside from us na in-order ng Supreme Court to rehabilitate the bay. Now, if we are to do what we have been obligated to do by the Supreme Court, we need to do the review of these projects. I'm not easily scared.
Italyo and land use.
Welcome back to the Cheese. We're still with our guest this evening, Senator Cynthia Villar. Ma'am, so moving forward, right now they're only suspended, these 22 projects. But the effects of these reclamation projects, are they reversible? Kasi natambak ng lupa, kahit suspendin mo yan, anong gagawin natin? What
Hindi pa
happens
naman
next?
lahat, not all have done it. But those who have done it, I asked the Department of Environment, Natural Resources. Dun daw sa ECC, there is a provision that it can be revised and it can be corrected. So they will use that provision to make changes.
Meaning to force the project people to
I was telling her.
take back
But that's just mitigation on a project that is presumed to be continuing.
Oo. But they have hired, they have created a team. In fact, before this happened, I have talked to them with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and the President, and they really is going to ask a team to study the reclamation of Manila Bay. And sabi nila 4 months daw ang study, and after that, they will call me and will explain what is
Teka muna. Tama po ba pagkakaintindi ko na what EMB, what DNR is saying is, opo, we hear your concerns, pero yung sa ECC naman, meron naman tayo dyang stopgap na
May
just
provision.
in case may kailangan i-adjust, pwede. Is that how ECCs are done? I mean, isn't
No,
that
there
just
is
basically...
a provision.
Oh.
There is a provision there. Sinabi niya sa akin yun na pag tinatanong ko siya, what can we do? There's a provision daw.
Hindi, kaya nga,
Anong range nun?
No, di ba-
It can be the whole
Pwede
range.
bang
Isn't
I
that,
think,
but isn't that like creating a loophole for yourself? Na bibigyan namin ng easy.
Hindi
Isn't
ba
it
mas
supposed to
mabuti yun?
work?
Kasi if there's something wrong, then it can be corrected.
No, but I thought the whole-
Provided mapuprove mo na there's something wrong.
You
But I
mean they
thought
can
the
be forced to
whole-
reverse the damage?
I thought the whole purpose of the EIA leading to the ECC was for the EIA to anticipate
Remember,
all the problems
this
first.
22 ECC, and when the president was saying, how can you issue 22 ECC in 1 year and you can study the effect? Nobody studied. They just issued the ECC.
Pero halimbawa nga, yung ECC, ang coverage niya is for the construction of a multi-use complex. Pwede bang biglang gawin yun na, gawin na lang natin yung mangrove park, pareho nung nasa Las Piñas? Pwede ba
naman
yun?
Iba naman
Pwede ba yun?
But they can say that the water can be retained. Yung hindi gagawing mangrove park, but yung water, hindi dapat tabunan lahat because there should be a flow of water.
Pero pwede siyang itigil completely because that's what some quarters are saying.
They were saying me that they can correct it.
They can correct.
Pero moving beyond stopping it completely kasi binabaha na ngayon as it is now,
Yes.
binabaha na ngayon So I suppose something needs to be done
Pwede ba
to
dismantle?
reverse
I think
the
they will
process.
do it because
But would that provision that you're setting, would that allow for these companies to spend more money to reverse the process?
that's their problem. Because when you make a plan on reclamation, I should provide that there will be no problem that will be caused by the reclamation. If you're a responsible company. But if you're a company just to make money, that's a different story. That's why there is a provision that you can correct it. Kasi kung ganun nga na hindi sila nag-provide ng enough safeguard for the people to not to suffer from the reclamation, then it can be revised.
Still has to do with all your committees.
Yeah.
Land use, agriculture, environment. I recall one of the very early let's say, discussions, conversations, even debate between, in particular, kumalat yung video na you and ang kapatid namin dito, Senator Raffy Tulfo. Dalawang matinding pangangailangan. Food security on the one hand, shelter on the other hand, and Senator Tulfo had taken it up on the perspective of, we have to protect our agricultural lands against all of these conversions. You may also made the point, however, that but we also need settlement. We need to create but
But
where
what he's
the
talking
compromise
about
there?
there is, he was telling me that we built a community, a home project, and a mall in a certain place in Isabela. But that place is a city. Yung Kawayan City, I was telling him, usually the developers, they don't build houses in the farmlands. Nobody will buy in the farmlands. Usually, we build our development in the city or capital towns because even the people, they will buy in the cities because they want also that the house that they bought, if they want to sell it, they can sell it. Who will buy homes in the farmlands? So, hindi naman kami abusive na we build all over the Philippines. We only build in the cities.
But going beyond that example, my personal impression, and a lot of people's impressions is, the reality is you don't need to go to the north, to Cagayan, to wherever. I just need to get out of Metro Manila and see what are, in fact, agricultural lands that have been converted into residential developments. And it's very, very clear. In fact, from the I recall one of the investigative reports, the first time CARP came out by Totoy Sarmiento, diba? Na from year one, immediately, agrarian lands were being converted into and I think that's what people are talking about.
It depends where the agrarian lands is. Kasi kahit naman city, may agrarian lands. And when you are in the city, you allow that conversion. But the people owning their lands in the cities can sell their lands and get high price from it. And from that proceeds, they can buy bigger lands outside the city. So it's not really disadvantageous to them. It depends. And us, we don't buy land that we cannot sell as houses. Typical of a business. And usually, you can sell houses only in cities. You cannot sell houses in very far places. So, parang meron na yung control. And if others, they go to another business. So, parang it's a law of supply and demand. You will not buy also if you cannot resell it as you want it. So, ako, ang view ko sa agriculture, we just have to make our agriculture more competitive. I mean, producing product in the same land with more. Like, for example, I was telling you, the aim of field rice is to increase the production of rice from 3.7 metric tons per hectare to 6 metric tons per hectare. That is increasing the production of rice almost 100% with the same land, with the same piece of land through technology.
Nabanggit na po natin yung rice. Meron tayong problema ngayon. Tumataas na naman daw ang presyo.
Minsan
What's
naman
the problem?
tumataas ang presyo not because there is shortage, because it is being controlled by traders. Yan ang, like for example, in 2018, the price of rice. That's why we passed the rice tariffication law in 2018, because there's no shortage and the price of rice rose to 48 to 60 pesos per kilo from 32 pesos to 40 pesos. So nakikita mo na may effect din yung practice natin ng ating trading, to the detriment of the rice farmers and the consumer. So we're trying now we remove the cartel, the system of cartel. We're trying to remove that. That's why we are passing the anti-agricultural smuggling and cartel law that so that it will be declared as economic sabotage and non-bailable, so that those cartel will be afraid to do it anymore, because it's really to the disadvantage of the farmer and the consumer. Kasi binabarat nila yung farmer, tapos nakikreate sila ng artificial demand, tapos tinataasan nila presyo to the detriment of the consumer.
I'd like to go back to yung increasing rice productivity. You mentioned kasi yung field rice from 3.7 going to 6
metric tons per
hectare sana. But we also had the experience nung panahon ni Ferdinand Marcos Sr. na we had all these new varieties that increased production significantly, but at the same time they also required or demanded a different set of fertilizers that were more expensive. And so
Not this
dami pong
one.
nalugmok na mga magsasaka noon
Not
at
this
nabuo
one.
sa utang.
We've studied that. I've studied that. You remember, I'm a business person also. I've studied that. Kasi Phil Rice told me that we can use organic fertilizer out of kitchen and garden waste, which we produce out of composting our kitchen and garden waste, and add some, what do you call this, chicken manure or animal manure, and it can be used for rice. That's why we are promoting now composting, by which we convert our kitchen and garden waste into organic fertilizer. That way, we make our cities clean with less expense in throwing the garbage, and at the same time produces a lot of organic fertilizer. We practice that in Las Piñas. We have 89 composting machines, and every composting machine can produce 1 ton of organic fertilizer every month if it's properly managed.
So you're saying it's okay on an industrial scale because we
Yeah,
talked to you,
yeah.
Sec Sebastian
Yeah.
Sabi niya hindi daw kaya on kailangan daw there's some fertilizer mix na organic, bio, saka chemical. Yun ang sabi niya kasi
ang
hindi
dami
daw
naman
enough.
nagsasabi sa akin ng mga poultry raisers sa Batangas that they're producing chemical organic fertilizer out of
Chicken manure,
manure,
yes.
and the DA won't buy them. So
Ma'am,
iba-ibang point of view So we have to really find out what is the truth. But I've been practicing
Yes.
composting for the last 20 years,
Very
and
rich, yes.
I'm very sure that it's really we don't buy any fertilizer in Las Piñas. We give them away.
We're almost out of time, ma'am. Let me
Yeah.
try to fashion a question that speaks to all the hats that you wear. You're in policy, you're a legislator, your family has many investments, as you know. That involves housing, that involves agriculture.
No, we have no investment in agriculture.
Okay, but you
I
mentioned...
only have a farm school because I want it as a CSR.
Sige. But you mentioned kasi kanina po, sabi niyo na maybe one way out of this is really the investments in agriculture have to just catch up. The value there of the land as agriculture has to catch up, and then that creates a counterpoint to the incentivization to convert farmlands into residential, commercial, whatever. But given all the concerns that you've acknowledged,
Not
how long does-
all agricultural lands can be converted to commercial and housing and industrial. It should be limited to cities kasi wala namang pupunta sa
sige po.
farmlands
Okay.
So what's wrong with the city of a whole province to being may BPO, merong bahay, merong mall, merong industries, ganon. And then the whole thing outside the city will be agricultural.
Sige. Ito po yung tanong ko. How much of a fighting chance will agriculture actually have from a business perspective for the value to go up, for it to have a fighting chance against any other options for land use?
I think for a project to succeed, you have to give something like 10 years, di ba? Kasi, you have to convince the farmers to do this. Mahirap din mag-convince ng farmers. So I would think that it will take 10 years, like this Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund. 10 years, it will really amount to something. Oh, unless the one implementing is not bent on implementing what is provided for in the law. But if they are really sincere in doing it, 10 years we can achieve yung self-sufficiency in rice. So, kasi it's hard also to teach farmers. Kasi kaya nga I wrote that farm tourism law which provided that we build farm schools in every town in the Philippines so that the farmers will learn from the farm schools how to use modern technology and mechanization so they will increase their harvest. And I even gave a budget to TESDA to pay for the tuition of the farmers studying in the farm schools kasi I'm sure they will not pay if they will not study if they will pay. And at the same time, yung naman nagtuturo, they will not teach unless they earn naman something out of that farm school. So, and it's additional income to the farm owners, and they can even turn it into a tourist farm where they have visitors. Parang let's give them a chance to earn more in their farms, and at the same time be able to help the community to be better farmers. I mean, I would like to think if the DA would be sincere enough to really help the farmers, we can do it.
Okay.
10 years.
And as expected, bitin tayo sa oras, but we'd like to say thank you very much, Senadora Cynthia Villar. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us tonight.
Maraming salamat po.
Yeah. Don't worry. Marami pa ring natitira na mababait. Na concern about it. Oh, hindi. Talaga may conflict lang ng interest. It's not only me. Me who is complaining. They want reclamation, but it's against the national interest that there will be reclamation if you take them together. I'm so surprised that the local government are really bent on reclaiming. Nobody will buy a house in a flooded place. So nawala na ng value yung mga real estate property ng mga and we are 600,000 people in Las Piñas, 600,000 people in Parañaque, and 600,000 people in Bacoor. And our houses will have no value. Usually, the developers, they don't build houses in the farmlands. Nobody will buy in the farmlands. Usually, we build our development in the city or capital towns. So, hindi naman kami abusive na we build all over the Philippines. We only build in the cities.
Yeah, interesting point ni Robbie kanina. We're talking about an issue of new land being created out of thin air, and the oppositor also happens to be somebody who deals with land.
Hindi, sabi naman niya hindi naman daw sila gagawa dyan sa mga agricultural area nga dahil wala naman daw bibili dyan sa mga remote area, di ba? Yan ang sinasabi niya.
Hindi, pero teka mo, ano na ba, kasi ang dami natin pinag-usapan. Ano na ba pinag-usapan? Yung reclamation o yung sa...
Sa reclamation muna, malinaw ba? May nakikita ba kayong solusyon? Kasi suspended lang
Sa suspension lang. Ang problem natin
Matitigil
is
ba?
may baha na, kahit suspendido yan. So tuloy pa rin ang baha.
Yes.
In the meantime, what happens? Moving forward, what happens?
Yun na nga, can you roll back, di ba?
And who's gonna spend for that?
Yun na nga ang kaya nilalabanan yan, siyempre, ng mga invested na yan.
Ang sa akin daw, yung isang tema na pinagtatali-tali lahat, whether it's land conversion, inland, or creating new land, as we said in reclamation, is really the question of who has the ultimate mandate, di ba, to create the policy. And yun nga, habang Land Use Act would then make it a national policy.
Kasi you also need somebody to take a bird's eye view of everything.
Yes.
You can't just have an LG looking at his front door, front yard.
Mukhang nagkanya-kanya, di ba? At saka lahat tayo nagulat na lang
On the other side of it,
Diba?
I do see the point of Senator Villar, not just during the show. Unfortunately, meron din tayong discussions of the show. Naintindihan ko rin yung ano niya na sometimes they have to grab the opportunity while it's there. Diba? Ay, kung bihira-bihira mag-alok sa'yo yung isang malaking investor,
Yes.
diba? They do.
Especially small, hindi ko nababanggitin ko anong syudad dyan sa Metro Manila, but that's what the mayor said. Ang liit-liit na itong lugar namin, syempre appreciated ng mga tao namin, nalalapad yung city namin. More jobs, more businesses, more opportunities all around. Kaya lang, yun nga ang point naman ni Senator Villar, di ba? We have to start thinking long term.
No, pero yun yung conflict
Yan
sa
naman.
di ba, between that's a conflict on the political and then the policy side. In the meantime, pinasok niya rin yung usapin ng siyensya, pinasok niya rin yung considerations for that matter ng ekonomiya
I'm sure
and
yung siyensya.
entrepreneurship, di ba? Ako yung huling tanong ko about the about the business, about di pakita natin yung value ng agriculture para may incentive na dun pumunta yung pera rather than any other application, di ba? Ang concern ko doon is if it takes, and I think she's being optimistic, na if it takes 10 years para magbunga yung value na yan sa agriculture, in 10 years hindi mo alam kung ano nangyari dun sa lupa na pinaglalaban natin, di ba? Anyway, yan po ang ating first episode ng The Chiefs now that we've come back under this new format. We hope you like it. Do tell us what you think. But for now, that's all we have for The Chiefs. We'll see you again. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
We hope what was discussed will keep the conversation going. I'm Ami Pamintuan.
And I'm Ed Lingao. We are One News, all sides, all the time.